Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what we're looking at.
Where is the money coming from?
City Council members debate plans over housing migrants. Our Spotlight Politics team has the latest.
We were primarily seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere.
Astonishing testimony from witnesses as UFO hearings land in Washington.
This is for you, our fans, and the city of Chicago.
He presided over the organization for 3 Stanley Cups, remembering Blackhawks owner Rocky Wirtz, who died yesterday.
Now it's not 100 people, it's 40,000 people.
And the Silver Room Block Party prepares for its last dance in Hyde Park.
Now to some of today's top stories. The cost to borrow money is set to go up again. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell announces the Fed is raising interest rates to 5.5%. That's the highest level in 22 years. The move comes despite a dip in inflation and a relatively strong economy. Powell says it might not be the last time rates go up.
I would say it is certainly possible that we would raise funds again at the September meeting if the data warranted. And I would also say it's possible that we would choose to hold steady at that meeting.
A statewide effort to reach so-called functional zero homelessness in Illinois became official today.
We understand the notion of functional zero. We get that. But functional zero does not mean thousands and thousands of homeless people. It doesn't mean that. This issue can be resolved with the right leadership and the right use of funds and the right team.
Governor J.B. Pritzker today signed the Home Illinois bill, which brings together 17 state departments and agencies to develop a comprehensive plan to combat homelessness. The main goal is to avoid shelter entry by, of course, finding stable housing, permanent housing for people who are unhoused, and ensure that shelter stays are brief and lead to quick transitions to stable living situations. Governor's office says this year's budget commits $360 million towards that goal.
Local and state emergency management officials are surveying the fallout from torrential rainfall that left thousands flooded between June 29th and July 2nd. They say they're going door to door, especially on the west side of Chicago in suburbs like Cicero, Stickney, and Berwyn, to assess the damage in determining whether or not to seek a presidential disaster declaration. That would come through FEMA. Those communities were hit the hardest, with as much as 9 inches of rain falling in one day. The officials acknowledge how many lives have been uprooted due to the flooding.
Cook County EMRS, that's the acronym for Emergency Management and Regional Security, is committed to pursuing every available resource that can assist our residents across Cook County who've experienced this overwhelming circumstance. It has upended their personal lives, it has damaged their properties, and has caused significant hardship in so many more ways.
The newly hand-picked Chicago Board of Education is already making changes at its first board meeting today. CPS board will now meet every 4th Thursday of the month instead of Wednesday to avoid conflicts with regular city council meetings. They're also expanding the number of public speakers at meetings, hosting some of those board meetings in the community instead of the Loop headquarters, and increasing the participation of the student board member. The board's 6 new members and 1 returning member say the changes are meant to improve transparency and community engagement.
And coming up in the program, a city council committee debates options to house migrants in the city.
But first, lawmakers in Washington look for answers about life in space. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Congressional hearings are staged to answer lots of pressing policy questions, but today's hearing of a U.S. House committee focused on that most vexing of questions for humanity: are we alone in the universe? More specifically, the committee heard testimony from several whistleblowers who say the government is covering up vital information on UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena, more commonly referred to as UFOs. And here is former Navy pilot Ryan Graves describing some of the unexplained phenomena he and other pilots have seen.
We were primarily seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere.
I'm sorry, dark gray or black cubes?
Yes, inside of a clear sphere, where the apex or tips of the cube were touching the inside of that sphere. And that was primarily what was being reported when we were able to gain a visual tally of these objects. And that occurred over almost 8 years. And as far as I know, it's still occurring.
And joining us now with more are Ron James, Media Relations Director for the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, and maker of the documentary Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, joining us from Sedona, Arizona, and local astronomer, space enthusiast, and president and CEO of Farther Horizons, Mark Hammergren. Welcome both of you to Chicago tonight. So Ron James, I'll start with you. Some of the more bombshell testimony here from Air Force Intelligence Officer David Grosh included the claim that the DoD, the Department of Defense, has been recovering crashed UFOs for years, and they're keeping these secrets, findings secret. What's your reaction to this testimony?
Well, the film that I made, Accidental Truth, is really very detailed evidence presented to support all of this. In fact, most of the people that are in the film are partially responsible for the headlines that we're seeing today. And so I present a very strong case that what David Grosh is saying is absolutely true.
And Mark Hammergren, for those of you in the science community or physics or astronomers, what is the general view on claims like this and some of the videos and incidents we've seen over the years of these objects that really don't have any explanation to this point?
Well, the thing that people keep coming back to, scientists especially, is where is the evidence? We have fantastic testimony. But at the end of the day, where is the evidence? Not just physical evidence, but convincing, repeated photographic evidence that demonstrates something that is not capable by nature or human craft.
Well, Ron James, you're saying indeed there is evidence. You have evidence, and these witnesses today were saying there are investigations ongoing, Inspector General reports ongoing, whistleblowers, but they can't really talk about what the evidence is. So what is the evidence?
Well, I think that's about to change. What we're dealing with that people need to understand is that as early as the 30s, definitely in the 40s, a very secret select group was convened to manage this information. And that some people call them Majestic 12. It could have been that group. It could have been something similar. But these people basically were accountable to only the highest levels of military and the political body. And they decided that this needed to be kept secret. Highly compartmentalized stovepipe programs, fusions of government and industry, all operating on black budgets so deep that over time they became accountable to nobody. That's who's been guarding this evidence, and that's where it lies. Now, we were able to, in the film, uncover Freedom of Information Act responses that acknowledged that in the 1940s, the Army formed something called the Interplanetary Phenomenon Research Unit. And as Matthew Modine, who narrates my movie, asks, well, why did they need that? And the evidence chain of materials that were supposedly created in laboratories by humans actually go back to institutes like the Battelle Memorial Institute, where early titanium research was secret. But resulted in
I want to cut you off there because I want to talk about some of the other testimony here, and this was referring to the infamous TikTok aircraft incident from about 17 years ago that was caught on video. Former Navy commander and pilot David Fravor spoke out about that incident that he observed.
You know, I'm not like a UFO fanatic. It's not me, but I will tell you that what we saw with 4 sets of eyes over a 5-minute period, still, there's nothing, we have nothing close to it. It was amazing to see. I told my buddy I wanted to fly it, but yeah, it's just an incredible technology.
So Mark Hammergren, what they were saying is this little thing that looked like a TikTok was accelerating instantly. It didn't seem to have any kind of engine. Is it generally accepted here that this was some kind of phenomena that there really are no human answers to how it did what it did?
No, first of all, it's Tic Tac like the candy.
Tic Tac, I'm sorry, Tic Tac, not TikTok like the app.
And there's in all of these cases, there's a big disconnect between the personal testimony of the pilots and the videos themselves. I've analyzed the Tic Tac and gimbal videos, And if you look at them and just kind of plot things out, none of the videos show any kind of anomalous behavior. And the appearance, the weird appearance of that, I've worked a lot with electro-optical sensors, infrared sensors, thermal infrared, like we see a lot here. And the appearance is exactly like a lot of the artifacts, the imaging defects that we see in these kinds of detectors. So
Ron
the
James,
videos themselves are...
Is it possible with the Tic Tac incident, some of these other incidents, there is some kind of human scientific explanation for what these phenomena are?
Well, I certainly agree with Mark that the stuff that has been released publicly is inconclusive at best. But the testimony from people that have seen the other videos and the descriptions that are non-classified about the flight characteristics of these objects, even though we haven't seen the video, they do seem to indicate a technology that's far beyond what we can do now. And that technology seems to go all the way back to the 40s when, for instance, we had Foo Fighters that were cited by World War II aircraft pilots that were doing many of the same things.
All right, Mark Hammergren, I mean, this is a very big question. Explain for our viewers how difficult indeed it would be for some extraterrestrial species to send an object all the way here from some other solar system to Earth. I mean, in terms of our understanding of physics, it's still nearly impossible and take hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, I think you've hit it right there, given our understanding of physics, with the biggest one being the ultimate speed limit of the speed of light. The very closest star is more than 4 light years away. If we were able to travel at the speed of light, it would still take more than 4 years to get from one star to the other. Getting close to the speed of light is not possible with any human technology that we have now, just science fiction. And given that, you'd have to have things like colony ships. We're just in the realm of science fiction here. So on the face of it, it would there's a big hurdle right there.
All right, well, we have to leave this discussion there for now, but we're going to continue having this because I know folks, bipartisan panel of Congress is interested in getting more answers on this. Our thanks to Mark Hammergren and Ron James. We appreciate it. And up next, our Spotlight Politics team with a look at today's heated debate in City Hall over housing migrants. So please stay with us.
Nearly 1,000 of Chicago's migrants are seemingly stuck at police stations. Here with that story and much more are our Spotlight Politics teammates, Heather Sharon and Paris Schutz. So as I mentioned, older people met today to talk about Chicago's migrant crisis. Heather, there are still 941 migrants living in Chicago police stations. What happened to that urgency to get them out of those police stations and into something more stable?
Well, we heard from members of Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration that urgency remains and that they are committed to doing everything possible to move these migrants to somewhere more stable to live, but that the buses are arriving, some as frequently as every day. So there just is not the space in the city's shelters where nearly 5,500 people are already living, meaning there's just simply no more room, and they can't simply open enough shelter space to keep up with the pace.
It sounds like that's important to note that the buses are still arriving. There's a new Lakeview shelter opening for 500 to 600 to house 500 to 600 migrants. Will that help ease the crunch at all?
It will not. It will simply move the families who are living at Daly City College on the southwest side and Wright City College in Dunning, because those schools, their fall terms start in a matter of weeks, so they can't live there anymore, and that's where these people will now go. There will be a new shelter that will open up at the Broadway Armory in Edgewater. It's very controversial, and that Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration says will help ease that pressure. But if the buses keep coming, the city will continue to be playing catch up in a race where real people are paying the price.
Paris, Heather just mentioned Edgewater's Broadway Armory. Is that a done deal? Is community input coming?
According to a letter from the area's alderperson, it seems to be a done deal by the mayor's administration, despite the fact that there is some community outcry. As Heather mentioned, tomorrow we're expecting there to be a rally, and this kind of underscores the difficulty because there are 77 community areas in Chicago, and it seems like in each community area you're going to have residents that say, hey, we want to help the migrants, but not at this facility. And in the case of the Armory, they're saying, we need this for teen programs, summer programs, low-income programs. There is programming here that the community relies on, and this is going to disrupt that. So we have to find someplace else. The problem is they've tried so many different communities, and there is outcry in every single community. So where's the perfect location? It doesn't seem like there is one.
There's also progress on two of Mayor Brandon Johnson's biggest campaign promises this week. Heather, where does the push to reopen the mental health clinic stand?
Well, there was a long hearing where advocates like Alderman Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez laid out the case to reopen 14 clinics. That would bring the total to 19 clinics. The big fight of this is going to be during the 2024 budget negotiations. So opening clinic takes money, and that is what the budget will decide. Tomorrow, there'll be a big hearing on the so-called Bring Chicago Home proposal, which would raise the real estate transfer tax on properties worth more than $1 million to create a dedicated funding source to help unhoused Chicagoans. Again, a very crucial sort of issue that will be much in the spotlight.
Okay, so a little bit of national news. DNC and labor unions, they've agreed to a labor peace during the 2024 political convention. Heather, how big a concern was this in the first place?
So it was not a concern. Chicago is represented by a former organizer for the Chicago Teachers Union. Governor J.B. Pritzker is very aligned with the unions in the state. There was never going to be a situation where there was labor unrest during Chicago's starring moment on the national stage next summer. However, this was an opportunity for everybody to get together, sing Kumbaya, and talk about how wonderful the convention will be in just about a year.
Can I mention the bigger concern is going to be how are they going to pay for all of it? Governor Pritzker acknowledged this is going to be the biggest convention yet. It's going to be the most expensive one yet. We're going to have to raise tons of money, and Heather has talked about this before. He's all but basically guaranteed it with his own wallet, saying, you know what, I'm your insurance plan. I guess I'll cover the costs if there are big losses here. But this is a roll of the dice when it comes to the finances.
Hasn't pulled out his checkbook just yet. I'm sure we'll find out when he does. Before we go, the race to replace Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx starting to take shape. Heather, what do we know?
Well, there are two announced candidates, Clayton Harris III, who is supported by Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, and Eileen O'Neill Burke, who is a former appellate court judge who stepped down to make this race. Other people might get in the race. It's still early. They will be able to start passing petitions just about Labor Day, so it's coming up. Maybe former Inspector General Joe Ferguson and former House Leader Jim Durkin.
Can I just quickly
Did we just have an election? Go ahead.
We always have elections, Brandis, in Chicago. But you know, Kim Foxx was heavily backed by Tony Preckwinkle, boss of the Cook County Democratic Party, has a lot of sway. The question here is she going to have sway again in putting the person that she wants in that position? And she wants someone like Kim Foxx, who is kind of hewed to those progressive ideals.
Okay, good to know. That's Spotlight. Heather, Paris, thank y'all. Up next, a Hyde Park block party prepares for its last dance. But first, a look at the weather. From its beginnings in Wicker Park to its present-day location in Hyde Park, the Silver Room has become more than a jewelry store. The shop's eclectic offerings, curated by owner Eric Williams, helped create an equally eclectic community over the last 3 decades. The spirit of that community inspired Williams to start the Silver Room Block Party in 1997 as a scrappy celebration of music, dance, and art. But now, in its 18th summer, Williams says this will be the festival's last dance. Producer Erica Gunderson has the story.
The first one, I still remember just the anticipation of it happening. It was a perfect summer day, you know, and just when the music comes on, it's like, wow, we're actually doing it.
Today, the Silver Room Block Party is a massive event in Hyde Park. Tens of thousands of people gather to dance, eat, shop, and celebrate. But Silver Room owner Eric Williams says the first event, which he staged in an alley next to his eclectic Wicker Park jewelry store in 1997, wasn't big enough to call a block party.
It was more of a customer appreciation party, honestly, is what it really was. I had been open for about 4 years, and in that time I met all of these interesting people from different parts of the music industry. So I'm like, it would be kind of cool to have an event that really features my customers in some ways. I'm in my 20s. Wicker Park was very vibrant, very diverse. I had no money, didn't know what I was doing.
William says he had been trying to get city festivals to include more black and brown acts in their lineups without much luck.
And they just always had some reason to say no. And I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna keep begging them, I'll just start it myself. And I called up some friends, some customers, oh, what do you do? I paint. Okay, cool, having this event, and that was really it. And it was just this free event. I mean, I went to Home Depot, got some extension cords. I ran the cords from my house upstairs down to the alley, and that powered the entire block party. The first 10 years, we had no vendors. We had no security, we had no nothing. So those first ones were great, they were magical, because it was just so pure. And my thought process was, okay, our store can be a little bit busier, that can help pay for this block party that costs, $400,
Over the years, the event outgrew its alley, and William says he continued to absorb much of the cost himself. In 2015, when the Silver Room and the Block Party moved to the heart of Hyde Park, the event took on an even bigger profile and expense.
When we moved down here is when it really escalated, and it just became this huge, huge ordeal, because now it's not 100 people, it's 40,000 people. You go from $400 to over $1 million. It's a little bit different.
The event remained free to attend until the 2022 festival, which was ticketed. Now the owner of multiple businesses, William says it's tough to continue taking on the labor and cost that goes into creating the block party.
I don't think if the average person understands how much time, resource, money is involved in creating an event like this. It's almost a year, basically. And we don't have like a team of 100 people. It's like me and like 3 or 4 friends.
And William says that's a big part of why the 18th year of the Silver Room Block Party will be its last.
I think it's time. Sometimes things need to end, and I'm happy. It's been a great 18-year run and had an impact on so many people, so many artists. People are really sad about it, and to me it's not a time to be sad, it's a celebration. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to dancing, I'm looking forward to seeing some old friends. People are like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I have like 8 jobs, so
Don't worry, I'll stay busy.
I'm good.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Erica Gunderson.
Even though this will be the last Silver Room sound system block party, William says he's got some surprises up his sleeve. The 2-day block party will take place on July 29th and 30th at Oakwood Beach. You'll find ticket information on our website, Paris.
It's always a fun event. Brandon's Chicago Blackhawks owner Rocky Wirtz led the organization to its greatest success, presiding over the team as it won 3 Stanley Cups. He died yesterday at the age of 70. Wirtz transformed what had been called the worst organization in professional sports into a model on the ice and on the balance sheet. His legacy is complicated by the Blackhawks' failure to act regarding the alleged sexual assault of a player by a member of the coaching staff. An investigation showed Wirtz had no knowledge of the organizational cover-up. In 2009, a year before the first of those Stanley Cups, Wirtz was hailed as a hero by fans and the media. And he spoke with John Calloway. Here's another look.
How is this for you personally? Because is it fair to say that you're not a showboat, you're not a PR guy, you're kind of shy, I'm told.
I am.
A behind-the-scenes guy. What's this like now, being a rock star?
Well, I don't know if it'd be a rock star, but I tell you, I put the team first, and I think you walk a fine line between self-promoting and promoting your team. And never is a long time, but I never want to walk over that line where I self-promote and don't promote the team. The only reason I do any of this stuff, including tonight, is to promote the team. And if we can get more people in, and we can keep our sponsors happy, and we can actually bring a winning franchise to the Chicago people in this great city, that's what we're going to do.
What kind of a father was your father?
He was a terrific man. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and my mother passed away in '83. But growing up, there was never a weekend that they weren't doing something with the kids. I remember fondly times when he'd bundle us up, put our pajamas on, we'd go to get in the car and all go to the drive-in movie theater, in Wheeling, the twin drive-in. If we were really lucky, we get a double feature.
And I read somewhere where you might tag along at the age of 7, you might find yourself falling asleep on his shoulder at the pump room or something while he's still working his contacts.
Well, he and Jimmy Norris would go, and they'd go to the pump room. They'd have, And at that time, they had, these small hamburgers, so it'd wake me up enough to eat something, I'd fall asleep, and I kid about it because the deal was, as long as I'd go to a game, as long as I got up and went to school the next day, it was fine. But school called and they said they thought I had a learning disability because I kept falling asleep in class. My mother couldn't say it's because he was with his father at a hockey game the night before.
And here we are 3 Stanley Cup championships later. That's Rocky Wirtz and John Calloway talking in this studio back in 2009.
And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Ever wondered about the backstory to Chicago's infamous parking meter deal? We'll share the details in the latest installment of our WTTW News Explained series.
And the work of a Chicago-based photographer who's documented Cuba for decades, featured at a news center for photojournalism. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz.
And I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm pleased to give back to the community through numerous charitable initiatives.